Welcome to the Expert's Journey podcast, where we're all about creating your path to impact. Join your hosts, Dixie Mary Carlton from Indie Expert Publishing and Mr. Web Marketing Brad Houck, as we look at how you can grow your business and influence by leveraging your knowledge for profit. Hey, welcome back to the Expert's Journey. In this podcast, Dixie and I will be looking at the best practices for marketing your self-published book, how you can take that book that you put so much effort into and get it out there so more people get the opportunity to read it, more people buy it, and of course that expands your reach and more speaking opportunities. So good morning, Dixie.
Good morning, Brad. How are you going today?
I'm going good, thank you. I'm just sitting here on the waiting edge of a cyclone, which for those people around the world don't know what a cyclone is. It is also known as a typhoon or a hurricane.
Oh.
And we're waiting to see if that makes landfall in the next couple of days. A little bit edgy.
Big weather pattern for sure. And I know what that's waiting for it all to hit. But hopefully things will go well. And in the meantime, you'll be able to listen to our fabulous podcast about marketing books and getting the best out of them once you've written your book. How do you then get leverage off that book? Is that our topic for today?
Yeah, that's it. That's it, right down to the bone. So writing a book's the easy part, I often feel, because even though it does take all that effort and everything, once you've got it, you've got the rest of your life that you've got to market that book, or at least until you put the next one out. Getting it to people and getting it in people's hands is not as easy as it sounds. The traditional method where we gave the book to the publisher and then the publisher pushed it out to all of the bookstores and you saw yourself at the airport. That doesn't happen as much these days. Sadly, it was always my dream, and maybe one day it'll come true, but it's not that easy. Based on your experience, obviously, as a publisher, you know this well better than I do. What's the first step in actually taking that book when it's in your hands and starting to get it out there?
Well, that's such a big area, and I do hope we've got enough time to cover it all. So let's do the fast track version first, and then if anyone wants more information, they can obviously reach out to us. But it's important to know that first you have to decide at the beginning of the writing journey what it is that you want. So, for example, do you want your book to go into bookstores? If that's your dream and you just want to do that, then that's a whole different path to go down than if you want to actually just get leverage on your book across multiple ways. If your book is nonfiction, you're clear on your genre, you've got a really good marketing strategy, and that includes working with the people that you are already connected with, a strong database, then use that book to build on that database. So, for example, going back to previous episodes where I've talked about the book needs to be focused on what do you want to have happen when people have finished reading the book. So that means that you've already got things in the book that serve the people reading it. So, for example, when I talk about breadcrumbing with the fact that as you are reading this book, dear reader, please remember that you can go to this page at the back of the book or onto my website and you can get more information or more resources and downloads, etc. So when you are then marketing the book and you're using it, you're working with your database, you are providing that information to them and saying, hey, reader, or hey, person on my database, just got this new book out. Please go ahead, read it, and you'll find some brilliant resources and things that you can download as part of having been able to read this book. And so here's all the reasons why you should read it. So that's your database. And even if you don't have a big database to start with, you can build on that in the same way that you would with any social media campaign. Hey, here's my Facebook ad. Here's the Facebook ad leading to my book. Here's the book leading to signing up on my website. That's a fairly standard option for nonfiction now. The other side of it is that you may say, look, I'm already a speaker. I may not have a brilliant database yet, but I want to go on stage and speak about the topic that my book is all about. And again, if you've started with the end in mind, then you will have a clear relationship between your book and your speaking topics or your workshop topics. Then you'll say when you're doing your workshops or you're doing your presentations, here's my book, and hopefully move a lot of bulk copies in that way or sell at the back of the room. So that's also a good way of getting sales on your book. And you've got as much chance of doing well in that area as what you have of getting sales through Amazon or Ingram Spark or Draft to Digital, etc. It depends on how busy you get as to what your results will be.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand that reach these days is hard. So reaching an audience is one of the hardest things to do. And so if you've got an email list and you can tap into that email list and get your book out to them, that's a great way of obviously getting out there. If you've got a good social media following, that's a good way too. But you've also got to understand that you may need to follow that up with paid ads if you want to reach your full audience, because that's the way social media works these days. You reach a percentage of your audience. You don't reach all of your audience when you first post.
That's right.
Trying to get that audience and then reach out to them is quite difficult if you're only relying on that. If you're out there on stage and you can hold your book up and say, oh, by the way, you can grab a copy of my book now, I'll have it at the back of the room or something like that, you're definitely going to move a few more copies than if you just rely on, say, Amazon and hope people find your books when they do a search for a book on the topic. Because realistically, I don't know how many books there are on Amazon, but there must be millions at least. And your chances of showing up are not as high as you might think without having a good following to push that book up.
That's absolutely right, Brad. And, I work a lot with Amazon and Ingram Spark. And essentially what you want to be thinking about if you're going to have your book on Amazon, which you should do, is you need to be thinking about ensuring that your listing is solid. So you've used all of the resources on Amazon and that your description is good, that you've got all of the extra tools and resources and things on there. You've got a full description, not just a one paragraph description, that you've got extra imagery that you can use through A+ content, and that you've got good rankings and good reviews. Those are important ways to make sure that Amazon continues to support your book, because there are tens of millions of books on Amazon. So if you want yours to stand out, you've also got to make sure that you've got the right categories that you've selected it to be in. So there's a bit of an art, science versus art, to getting your book to perform well on Amazon. And I've got a couple of really great videos on my website about exactly how to do this in my resources area. And I'll walk you through step by step all of the cool things you can do on Amazon that a lot of people aren't aware of. For example, A+ content, where you can have snippets or pieces of information from the book that says this is who the book is for, this is what it relates to, this is about the author. Where you can say, by the way, I'm a speaker as well as an author. So there's all of those parts of it. When you load your book onto Ingram Spark, which is for print on demand and distribution through to tens of thousands of bookstores around the world and libraries, you can also, because they don't just automatically send them out to there, but you can also make sure that you are using their catalogue and their magazine style newsletter.
Oh, yeah, the newsletter.
Yeah. So in opportunities, and I've been testing that recently and found that it's been okay. But again, it comes down to how busy you are and how active you are. Blogging regularly, using Substack to talk about your book, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, having a series of things that come from your book, whether it's excerpts or pieces of information or reviews that are turned into really good-looking memes that you can share on all of your social media, will also direct people back to your book.
So just to cut in there, sorry. We're talking about like content for social media. So just let's take Instagram, where we're talking reels or static images realistically. Reels are obviously a big way to get traffic on Instagram. What sort of thing, if you were to give me 5 different types of posts that you would normally do with an author, what would be on the 5 different ones?
Leading up to the release of the book, we would do a picture that says, hey, about to release the cover. Here's a snippet. So you've got the cover looking like it's all wrapped up and the snippet of the cover showing. Then you would do this is the cover. Then you would do this is my book. This is what it's about. So here's a couple of snippets of like subtitle type information. For example, my book about writing books is coming out next week and it's going to have these kind of pieces of information in it. So make sure you look out for it. Those memes are good. And then, of course, you want to make sure that you've got people who have said great things about your book saying those things in one sentence versions of those and getting them up onto images with the cover of your book. And of course, everything has, an additional link and a piece of information on the Instagram post or whatever, Facebook post, to say, hey, by the way, this is my book. The imagery is to look good, but to make people say, oh, books come on, there's going to be, bullet points A, B, and C in there. And then after that, you want to say, hey, my book made it up to #1, hot new releases on Amazon. So you might do capture shots of that and put those into images onto your social media. So you'll do a whole series of things to lead people through the journey with you. The book is coming. We're releasing the cover. Here's where you can get the book. This is what people are saying. Hey, we've made it to #1 or seller status. We've just won an award for it. And those things can be ongoing. So you want to make sure that you are bringing your followers along with you on the journey as you're getting ready to release your book, and then as you've released it, and then post-release. And you can also do things way back in the beginning, of course, to actually get people aware of the fact that you're writing a book, where you can say, hey, I'm writing a book. What do you think of this title versus this title? Would you want to know more about A, B, or C topic if I expanded this? Or I'm looking for case studies. If your case study is going to be part of what I write in this book, would you then be part of my launch crew and make sure you tell people about it?
What about some tools for creating this sort of content? For example, I've always been a big fan of Placeit because it does the mock-up sort of pictures and things like that. And they do have a really good wide range of stuff now. But I know there's other tools out there that can create this content that has templates to make it nice and easy for you when you're not a designer.
Yes.
What are some ones that you like to use?
I love Canva because Canva is so easy and so dynamic. But I also use BookBrush a lot. And BookBrush is something where you can also, if you're of a mind to it, to use the templates to create your own cover design. Personally, I prefer to use a professional cover designer, so that's not something I usually use, but I know that they do have a good cover design creator in there. But BookBrush is reasonably expensive if you're not using it for books a lot, because really it's like the Canva isolated book design program. It's probably the best way to describe it. So if you're already using Canva and you don't want to use an additional program, then Canva will give you everything you need. But if you are doing a lot of books, then I do like BookBrush. BookBrush will give you an additional thing of all the different ways that you can have the book cover showing, lying down in 3-dimensional A, B, and C, the audiobook version, the book with the headphones on it. So there's lots of different ways of looking at what your book can be demonstrated like in an image, much like Placeit probably.
Okay. Oh, that's good. No, so BookBrush is probably one that most people haven't heard of. I talk about Canva enough as it is, but BookBrush is not one of the ones that you just randomly come across, I suspect. It's nice to hear you saying there's a good place to start because there's so many resources online to help us with promoting books that often it's like they're all the same. Yeah. But if you prefer as a professional publisher that tool, then obviously with all your years of experience, you've decided that's just a little bit easier and it does make things more simple.
It does, yes. And there are some things about it that I do prefer. But that's also been something that I've been using for a number of years. So I've refined which parts of which of those programs I use for different ones. Mm-hmm. And of course, I also have a designer on hand in-house who is fantastic at doing all those things anyway. So I don't necessarily need to be playing myself in there anymore because I have the designer who will slap me on the wrists and say, Dixie, don't give up the date.
That's my job.
Although, having said that, she's quite excited about some of these programs as well now. But there are other things that you can be doing about promoting your book that I just want to move on from the image making side of it and start talking about things like the programs such as Booksprout, where when your book is coming up ready for release or even after you've released it, you can go onto Booksprout, load it up and invite people to review your book. They're happy to just avidly read. And because they read so much and they're happy to do a review, they have to offer to do the review in order to get the free download. But then that also builds up your reviews listings on your platforms like Goodreads and Amazon, etc. So that's worth having because that also helps to put more emphasis onto getting the book out there. The other one that I use quite often is ebook fairs, where I think it's about $8 a month. That might be Australian dollars a month. $8 a month, and you can list your books in your own profile, but every now and then add your book into a fair. So, for example, someone might be doing a fair on nonfiction business books or books on leadership. And you'll be able to, if you've got a book on leadership, you'll be able to say, I want to submit my book into that fair. There might be 20 books that are going to be in that fair. Those books are all listed for a period of maybe a month or 3 to 5 weeks. While that fair is open, people that are all part of the book, ebook fairs database, which is tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, are alerted that if they have an interest in that kind of genre, that this book fair is open for them to see a selection of new releases in this particular category. So they estimate on each of the, I just did one the other day, on each of the fairs that they may get between 3,000 to 5,000 votes or people looking at and then voting on whether or not they think that looks like a good book. And then
cool.
And then those people, if they like it, then you can also offer them a free book sample. You can offer them ways to sign up for your database. I built my database up significantly using ebook fairs just over the last 2 years. So there's lots of ways you can use programs like that. Book Funnel, which offers you an opportunity to not only promote your book, but also do book swaps. You can use things like the Fussy Librarian, where you go in and you say, right, on this day, I want to make my book available at a special rate. And so you make that happen and then you promote it. And it might cost you $100 US to promote the book to be on their database and on their newsletter for that particular genre for that particular day. Now, I know a lot of people have had significant success with that. I've tested it a few times and sometimes it's been great and sometimes it hasn't. But there are many that offer you opportunities to promote your book in ways that you may not have thought of. So it is worth deep diving. And the other thing is I've just taken on someone who is able to manage and navigate all of those areas without me having to be savvy about it anymore, because it's constantly changing and it's constantly evolving. And how you line up your social media with your book sprout and your book funnel and your ebook fairs and all of those things to promote your book across so many options is something that takes a dedicated amount of expertise and time. So if you don't want to spend all that time doing that, then sometimes it is better to actually engage a professional. And they're out there.
I think that's the hardest part. Is you put so much effort into things and then you have your own business and then you're trying to promote the book and you're trying to get the word out and you get caught up in other stuff. And while there is the outlay of having a professional do things, the fact of the matter is that at least you can walk away from it, from certain parts of it, I should say, to take care of other things while a professional takes care of that. And if you look at the return on investment, it's obviously worthwhile if you can get it going right. And whereas if you hit and miss yourself, you're really just, I don't know. It's like anything. A professional knows the quick way to do everything.
That's true.
If you want something fixed on your website, if you want your marketing looked at for online, it's quicker for me to do it than it is for you to learn how to do it and do
Absolutely.
it. And it can be worthwhile.
But having said that, it's taken me a long time to find this particular person who is able to offer me that service. And Sprout and Book Buzz are really complex, and you can sink a lot of money into those just experimenting. So finding those great people helps. Now, I've just re-released this last week my book, Start With the Draft. So I've been going back in and looking at things like my ebook fairs, my listings on Booksprout, my review system, my Amazon listing, all of those things. I've been going back in and reviewing all of that. And that's the most important thing to think about. Go back in and periodically update what you've got listed on Amazon. Update what you've got listed on ebook fairs. Go back and think about, I'm going to spend 2 weeks of just dedicating my social media time to this book. And I will nurture this book's re-release or new launch because that's going to work really well for it long term. There is a payoff to getting things done well at the beginning because it generates interest in the book, and then the algorithms will pick up and say, oh, this book isn't just sitting there at the back of the dusty shelves. People are interested in it. People are buying it. Then it starts to become more easily searchable. So things like that matter.
Yeah, absolutely. It's worth reviewing. I've seen this even with YouTube. Going back and reviewing some of my old videos, renaming them, or re-describing them, putting in updated things like timestamps.
No.
But just going back through that old content and updating it has made a massive difference to its pickup. And I imagine with any other tool that promotes your products, that there's no difference. Refreshing causes the algorithm to kick off, and people see different keywords that you've learnt relate to it after having spoken for a while and sold the book. You hear people using certain phrases, or you've developed certain phrases. All those things can really make a difference when it comes down to, as you said, reinvigorating the sales of a book.
Absolutely.
So nice to hear your book's back in the cycle of life again.
We decided it was time to give it a new shot of adrenaline, and we've updated a few things. And that's another area where I think people need to think about what they're doing with their books. If you're going to use it as a lead magnet, if you've got an old book that's sitting there redundantly, this one's only been out for a couple of years and it's doing really well, but even old books that are sitting there languishing a little bit because they've been around for a while, do a revised edition. We're doing a revised edition of From Idea to Authorities coming out in another couple of, about 3 or 4 weeks. So we're doing a revised edition. We're adding it as being part of a series, putting some of your older material into reformatted versions or shorter versions, or maybe making your big long book into 2 shorter versions and calling one of them a lead magnet that actually then promotes the other one. There are so many ways you can twist and turn this whole industry to work for you. Books are worth more than just saying, hey, here's my book, go home and read it. Go home and play with it and indulge in all the extra things that I'm offering you as the author when you read this book.
Absolutely. I think we've covered quite a bit today.
We have.
As we always come to the end here, there's a lot to think about. There's a lot of notes. And I've certainly got some good little tips and things that I've got to go back and fix up myself. To all our listeners, thank you for joining Dixie and I today on Expert's Journey, where we've looked at the best practices for marketing a self-published book. If you've got any questions or thoughts, please drop us a review or reach out and send us a DM. We'd love to hear from you. If you like this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And if you need help writing a book, see Dixie at indieexpertspublishing.com. And if you want help with your AI or online marketing, book a free chat with me at mrwebmarketing.com. We appreciate you tuning in, and we look forward to having you with us on the next one.